Xavier de Janon, and I am a rising 3L at Golden Gate University School of Law. I am also a member of the Equal Justice Works National Advisory Committee. Today, we're here for another installment of my Impact Alumni Fellow series, this time with Rebeca Garcia Gil, 2018 Equal Justice Works Fellow. We're here today to talk about how an Equal Justice Works Fellowship launched Rebeca's career and to hopefully inspire law students to follow their passion for public service and equal justice. Thank you, Rebeca, for taking this time to speak with me today.
Of course, Javier, I'm really happy to be here and be able to share my experience.
So let's start from the beginning. Rebeca, why law school and what compelled you to pursue a career in public interest law?
As you can imagine, and I'm sure it's the same for everyone, it's a long story. In short, I actually immigrated to the United States as an international student in order to pursue my undergraduate degree back in 2010. And when I first got here, I struggled a lot with culture shock, with homesickness, with a lot of very emotional things. And it was through working not only with other international students, but with the immigrant community in the college town that I lived, that I finally found kind of like a sense of my identity. I felt connected to who I was, connected to home, and it was just extremely fulfilling for me. I decided to pursue law school. I was very interested in discovering whether or not immigration law was the right path for me. And after spending a semester in the immigration clinic at my law school, I realized that that was my passion and it pretty much cemented my decision. And I became extremely passionate about humanitarian forms of immigration relief, including asylums, immigrant juvenile status, and U visas, and just generally with assisting people who have endured hardship.
That's great to hear, Rebeca. As an Equal Justice Works Fellow, you served in our Crime Victim Justice Corps, which is a cohort legal fellowship program. How did you find out about the fellowship?
Being very honest, I was really lucky. My path was a little different from the usual Equal Justice Works design your own fellowship, where the law students pitch their projects to different donors and sponsoring organizations. During my last semester of law school, I was, like every other 3L, I was actively searching for immigration law positions in the nonprofit sector. And it was actually my mentor and my immigration law professor, Maureen Sweeney, who forwarded me a job post from the University of Maryland Safe Center for Human Trafficking Survivors, explaining this position. And I did research on Safe Center, and then I did research on Equal Justice Works, and I was just floored by the amazing opportunity that this would be. So I immediately applied and then felt truly privileged when I got the position and I was able to start as a fellow.
You kind of touched on it, but what made you motivate to embark on this opportunity versus others?
This was a very unique opportunity because, the fellowship allowed me to continue my passion of working with immigrant communities, but also teach me something completely new. I was not an anti-trafficking advocate before I started this job. I, just focused solely on immigration law. But this position really allowed me to explore other areas, which was crime victims' rights advocacy. And now I am extremely passionate about that and just assisting and empowering survivors of human trafficking. So it was a huge motivator to be able to do something I love, but also at the same time learn something completely new.
During your time at the fellowship, you served, as you kind of mentioned, at the University of Maryland Safe Center. You represented survivors of sex and labor trafficking in immigration. Why this particular practice area?
As I mentioned before, it was just a very unique opportunity of marrying immigration law with anti-trafficking work and crime victims' rights advocacy. I was very eager to explore different areas because, as you can imagine, immigration law in and of itself is huge, but then even humanitarian immigration law divides itself very clearly in different applications and different forms of relief. So this specific practice area was completely new for me, but at the same time, it wasn't as unfamiliar as something entirely new. So it was just perfect for me to be able to continue practicing immigration law while learning anti-trafficking advocacy at the same time.
What was the biggest challenge you faced there, and how did you overcome it?
To be honest, it's an ongoing challenge. In law school, especially if you're interested in public interest law, you learn a lot about vicarious trauma, about compassion fatigue, burnout. And I thought I was prepared for it after the immigration clinic and working with asylum seekers, domestic violence survivors. I really thought I had it. I had it ready and I had it set. But in spite of my previous experience, the reality of working full time with a heavily traumatized population really took a toll on me and on my mental health. And it has been a work in progress to figure out what self-care means to me, what healthy boundaries are. And I often have to remind myself that I need to be in a good place in order to effectively and zealously advocate for my clients. So it's been hard kind of to put yourself first in a way when you're so used to putting other people and really wanting to help as much as you can. You have to be very smart about where you put your resources, where you put your time. So to be honest, it has been the biggest challenge that I faced, but I'm still facing as a public interest attorney. But I think it's important to share it because anyone working in a trauma-heavy setting needs to keep in mind that self-care and healthy boundaries are extremely important if you want to do this kind of work in the long term.
You had some training. How did you leverage that expertise and connections with other fellows with the trainings you received?
That was honestly one of my favorite parts about being an Equal Justice Works Fellow. During the 2 years that I was part of the fellowship, we had this annual meeting in DC called the LDT Annual Training. It was very easy for me because I live right outside of DC, but I know that a lot of fellows usually flew in from all over the country. And it was amazing because we connected through different sessions. We had different training sessions, but also sessions where we really just shared our experiences and our expertise. And that was, to me, fostering a community of attorneys who are doing the same applications I'm doing, facing the same struggles I'm facing. It felt really nice to be so supported and to be able to learn from my peers. Because, coming from law school, you're learning from your teachers, you're learning from attorneys that you're interning under. But being able to learn from people who are doing the exact same work as you're doing has been amazing. And it also really shows the reality of law practice because, with law practice, you will call your colleagues all the time to ask them what they think or to, gain insight into something that you may not be an expert on. So fostering that collaborative environment was amazing. And then, fellows have referred clients to me and I have referred clients to my fellows. And if there's ever, referral of someone who may have started in Maryland but then moved somewhere else, I happily pick up the phone, call those, and they can point me in the right direction. So it's been a wonderful community and just a great resource to have. In addition to also meeting people from a similar background, I've met, other Latina lawyers, other people who are also come from immigrant families, and it's been honestly one of my favorite parts of being a fellow.
That sounds great. That's such a strong network.
Yes.
So now you're the full-time immigration attorney at the Safe Center. What did you do at law school to help you prepare for the fellowship and then for this role?
It may sound a little redundant, but being a student attorney at the immigration clinic at my law school was a crucial aspect of my preparation as a practitioner now. I think that gaining practical experience is just invaluable because no amount of coursework will give you the experience and the insight that hands-on experience can give you. At the clinic, I was able to represent clients under the supervision, of course, of my professor, but really work with them on their applications. And I would say that if your law school offers clinics, definitely take advantage or seek just any form of practical experience that you can get.
What advice would you have for people who aren't sure what area of public interest law to pursue?
I think that definitely exposure is key because, we learn about things in law school, we learn about different subjects, but it's very different to learn the black letter law from the actual practice. So if you're interested in certain things, definitely just explore it as much as you can. If your law school offers different clinics, I know mine had a myriad of clinics. We had immigration, gender violence, landlord-tenant, consumer protection, just so many things that we as students were able to explore. But then if for some reason what you're interested in is not offered or you're not able to take it, there's a variety of internships that can be helpful. There's nonprofits are always, seeking assistance, and there's great attorneys out there who are willing to mentor law students. So definitely take advantage of that. And just, I think by gaining that exposure, you're able to little by little see what it's like and then decide if it's the right path for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. And right now we're living still in a pandemic. Um, how has your work shifted because of the pandemic, and what have you learned that maybe you can share to help lawyers and new law students?
It's been a struggle for sure. It's been a switch, a very difficult switch to make for us. I think the biggest difference for me was that since the start of the pandemic, I have not been able to see my clients in person. Court has been postponed. And we're very hands-on when it comes to working on a client's application. I meet with them in person to sign the forms, to work on their declaration, to listen to their story. And when working with someone who is so heavily traumatized, like the survivors I work with it just feels very cold and very impersonal to do all of that over the phone or to do all of that over Zoom. So I'll honestly say it was very painful at first to have to make that transition. I really felt for my clients and I felt for myself because I honestly missed the interaction with them. But at the end of the day, you do what you got to do and you adapt as best as you can. And we've been working for over a year now, completely remote. If I need a client signature, we mail them out to them and then they mail it back to us, which can slow down the process a lot. But at the end of the day, we're getting those applications out. And I would just, adapt to the times. And I'm just very hopeful that we can go back to some form of hybrid model where I'm able to see my clients again because I miss them.
How have you adapted though? What are the kind of solutions that you'd recommend to others?
Definitely. Well, I think the main thing that helped me adapt was just the use of technology. Just being able to use Zoom, being able to really connect with clients in that way. And that meant a lot of times stepping outside of our comfort zone as attorneys and literally guiding a client in downloading the Zoom app on their phone, which has been really interesting, becoming kind of like an IT person in addition to being their lawyer. But I think for me, it was just taking advantage of everything technology can give us and taking advantage of just creative ways to make things work. If you can get something signed through like Adobe Signature so you don't have to mail it out to the client, then we'll do that. If nowadays, at least in my area of work, US Citizenship and Immigration Services became more flexible in allowing scanned signatures, then you know what, let's go with that. But just being creative in approaching new ways and being open to technology, I think has been the most important thing for me.
Yeah, and today is actually World Day Against Trafficking in Persons. What are some ways that public interest attorneys and law students can do to support survivors of human trafficking?
Definitely pro bono work. I know it sounds strange, but after working with trafficking survivors for several years now, they have a myriad of legal issues related to their trafficking. I focus specifically on my foreign nationals and immigration and crime victims' rights advocacy, but trafficking survivors have any form of legal need that you can think of. We have survivors who unfortunately are married to their traffickers and they're in need of a custody or divorce attorney. We have people with landlord-tenant issues, housing issues, and then even identity theft. We have people whose traffickers have stolen their social security number. So it's, I think that if you're an attorney in any area of the law that you can think of, you will be able to help if you offer up your time and your expertise to the survivors. So if anyone wants to, assist human trafficking survivors in any way, I strongly encourage them to reach out to their local anti-trafficking organizations and just offer up your expertise, because even if we don't have a case for you right now, I'm sure something will come up in the future or will really just value your time and your expertise.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think everyone has a way to help. But what about those who are not attorneys but want to help? How can they get involved in the fight against human trafficking?
I think the most important thing anyone can do is educating themselves on anti-trafficking. I think unfortunately there's a lot of really harmful trafficking stereotypes and misinformation going around. So I think the first step is really, listening to survivors of trafficking, organizations assisting them, and helping us get the good information out there so people really understand what survivors go through and what this is about. And supporting anti-trafficking organizations can take many shapes. It doesn't have to be necessarily a monetary donation. Volunteering your time in any way you can is really helpful. We've had college students do, clothes drives, food drives, in addition to donating money. And we've had, students volunteer with us for different things, including, if they know a different language, they can help us translate some documents. They can help us be interpreters with clients with whose language we don't necessarily speak. So I think if you're willing to give your time, there's definitely a lot for you to do in this cause.
That's awesome, Rebecca. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. It was really a pleasure and an honor to learn what motivated you to become an Equal Justice Works Fellow and learn about your career journey following the fellowship and how you became the attorney you are today. Above all, I want to thank you for your continued commitment to ensuring access to justice to our immigrant communities who at times don't have a voice, but we're here and we're here to stay. Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Javier. It was my pleasure.